Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. So today we have for review the XINLIN HI X162 micro quadcopter. Now this one looks like a lot like its little brother, the X165, I believe it was, that I just reviewed. But anyway, it's a little bit bigger, and this one looks like the same features. It does a headless mode, return to its bearing direction, and it also does flips and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to quickly unbox this and go ahead and just go through a quick little setup and inspection out of the box. Then we're going to take it into the field, do a park test flight with it, and also an in-house little flight just to get a feel for the different environments and how it flies, and then come on back to the table and do kind of a final pros and cons afterthoughts. So anyway, let's get started with the unbox. Okay, so we got our manual on top, and here's the quad itself. Little micro size, not quite a mini, not quite as big as a mini, and not as small as a nano. And then here's the controller. So it's got kind of a neat looking game stick controller. It's a little bit larger than most of those nano type of quad controllers, so it feels really good, just like a game stick in the hands, almost exactly like an Xbox 360 or One controller here. And I'm not seeing a screwdriver in the box. I am seeing just a charger, a manual, the quadcopter, and the controller. So you are going to have a little screwdriver, and go ahead and take out that screw. Feels like this one latches, so you're probably not going to need to put that screw back in. And I like how the door doesn't come all the way off. It just kind of rotates so you won't lose the door easily. So that's a nice feature. And it looks like it just takes 3 AA batteries. It snaps in nice and tight, so we won't have to put this screw back in. Anyway, there's the controller. Looks like it's got a little speaker port here for the mode sounds. And then one more thing they give you in the box are a new set of props. I kind of missed that because it was taped to the very bottom. So, but basically that's good. They give you a whole extra set of propellers. And the main event, here is the X162. So it's got that kind of mock looking GPS little tower that a lot of quads have. But of course it doesn't have any kind of GPS, so it's just kind of for effect. And we've got little prop guards on here that are already mounted up. It looks like they're combined with the motor cap. So it looks like if you did want to take off the prop guards, you'll probably have to cut them off. It looks like it's not easily removable. And then, so basically you've got a couple of lights on the bottom, nice little landing feet with a couple of pads here. And then here's the battery compartment. So the battery is in there, not really too tight, so you shouldn't have to put any tape on there to pull it out. Doesn't seem like it's going to break any wiring. I like that door, pretty neat little door there. And then here's the battery itself, a 3.7 volt, 390 mAh lithium polymer 1S battery with this little micro connector here. I guess that's a low-C micro connector. But anyway, that is the quad and the battery. And then the instruction manual. Let's see how all of the controls work here. So we've got, of course, on the controller, just like any left-hand throttle controller, you've got your throttle for gaining altitude or dropping altitude. You've got your yaw left and right. And then on the right stick, you've got your pitch forward, pitch back, and roll left, roll right. Power button here in the middle. And then it looks like this one's using these extra little thumbstick buttons here, these extra little arrow buttons here for the advanced features. So basically pushing up on this one will get you in headless mode. If you do have a cameraed version, which I don't think this is just the regular version, you would do the left arrow to do photos, the right arrow to do videos, and then this bottom arrow to do one key return to home. So it'll return in its general bearing it launched from. And as far as this right little D-pad, this arrow D-pad, basically these are all just the trimmings for your pitch front, back, roll left and right. Then on the top here we have the right trigger is going to be your flips. So it looks like you would click that, and then in any direction here it should flip. And then this is, they're calling it a speed control, but basically this would be your different rates. So you'd click this and you can either fly faster or slower. Not sure how many modes that has, but we'll go ahead and test that out in our flight test. There's the manual, and we'll definitely be testing that out in the field on how all this works. So nice looking little quad. It does look pretty sleek. Oh, okay, here it is. So I'm seeing on the bottom, I'm seeing the camera plug in here. So if, it looks like it's an aftermarket or a different version where you could just screw on the little camera here, and you could plug it in for video and or photos right there. Then of course the USB charger, you just plug in the battery here in this port, and then the this you'd plug into any phone charger or your computer to charge the battery up. So anyway guys, let's go ahead and take this guy out to the park, do some park testing, see how it does, and then I'll do also a house flight and see how it performs in the house and the park, so we have two different environments to get a feel for how it does in both wind, a little bit of wind and no wind environments, and you know, all that stuff like range testing and flight times and all that. Then we're going to come on back to the bench and do a final pros and cons and just see how it did. So let's go fly. Okay, so we're here at the park and we're going to give this guy a little flight test. Test out all the modes, see how it does. So I like this little battery latch door. It's pretty convenient, pretty cool, a little bit different than most. Turn on the controller. Okay, so the controller looks like you have to bind by going up and down on the throttle. Let's try this guy out. So today it's a little bit overcast and we're getting some wind coming from this direction. So let's see how it does. All right. I left the prop guards on because in order to take them off, I'd have to cut them off because they're built into the motor caps. So just going to be using the prop guards for this flight, and then I'll probably cut them off for the house. All right, so this is rate 1. Let's go ahead and have a close-up this guy. So real docile in rate 1. Yaw is really slow. Rate 2 is much better. And looks like rate 3 is even better, except the yaw stays the same in rate 2 and 3. But the pitch has really gotten high. I'm going to go stay in rate 2. And let's go ahead and test some of the modes here. So flips is the right trigger. My modes basically, by the way, were the left trigger. I was switching the rate modes for faster flight. And right trigger, there's our flipping. Right trigger, any direction. Flips good, seems to maintain its altitude, drops a little bit, but then it levels off without touching any throttle. The wind's coming up a little bit. All right, so other modes, we did launch in this direction, so I'm gonna go out a little bit and test the return to home and headless. Okay, so here's the headless. I basically pushed up on this little arrow button on the left arrow here. And so it looks like it's possibly already a little bit skewed. I'm pressing forward and it's going a little bit to the left. It's going actually pretty far to the left. So let's get out of headless mode again. And let's try our return to home. Should be the same button pad, but with the down arrow. Okay, so the return to home actually worked better than the headless, interestingly enough. Let's try that again. So straight out from me and pressing down. Wow, so the return to home worked really good. It's coming back at me. Let's actually see if it comes back if I go off in this left direction. Interesting. it remembers where I am. So that's pretty interesting. Let's see if I do that when I am. Well, there's our range. It looks like there's our battery. So a real short. Well, maybe not. Okay, that was a real short range. Battery's still good. Seemed like it landed slowly when I was out of range, and that was not very far at all. That was only about 75 feet to 100 feet. So that was interesting. Seems like the return to home works really good. I'm going to try the... Well, not sure if it's the range cutting in and out. These are fresh batteries in the controller, so I'm not sure if it's the range or it's just having maybe battery problems, but it seems to want to try to land. There we go. So return to home, I'm really impressed. It seems like it's coming back right in my direction, no matter where it's at. Okay, so a little bit weird with the battery. There goes the battery now. So it seemed like the battery kind of either was having some problems or maybe it was just the range, I'm not sure, but it was kind of getting a little bit sluggish and trying to land frequently. So I do have fresh batteries in the controller, and this was a freshly charged battery too in here. I'm gonna go ahead and cycle the battery a few times and then do a home test. But so far, really impressed with the return to home. I haven't seen one that actually remembers where the pilot is. This one seemed to remember where the pilot is and came back right at me, no matter which direction I was facing or which bearing I went out at. So that's really impressive if that's the case, which seems to be. Okay, cool. So we're gonna take this in the house, cycle the battery a few times, see if maybe it's just a fresh charged battery that is having a little difficulty, and then trying to put it through the rest of its paces in the house, and then go back to the bench and do kind of a final pros and cons, afterthoughts, get our flight timings. All right, and all that. So we're in the house with the X162 micro quadcopter, and I'm gonna do a little house flight in a no-wind environment, see how it performs here. It's a pretty loud speaker on the controller, that's for sure. Okay, so powering up, closing. I do like this little back battery door. It's nice and clean, closes well. Okay, so gyro and accelerometer calibration. I'm not sure which is which, but basically bottom left, both sticks, you get slow blinking. That's probably the gyro. And then bottom right, both sticks, you get a fast blink. And that's probably the accelerometer. All right, so let's try it out in the house, see how it does. Real nice and smooth. It barely took any throttle input to get it up like that. So it does seem like it's getting really good lift in a no-wind environment. And I'm gonna go through the rate modes. So here is the stock yaw. And I'm going to go into the second rate of yaw. Looks like it might be a little faster, maybe the same. Let's come back over here a little bit. Slightly wandering. Maybe I should trim it just a little bit. Just trim it to the left a little bit. So this one has these prop guards that you can't remove unless you cut them off. So that could be also part of its wandering. It seems like it's wandering a little bit, not really a steady, straight hover in a no-wind environment. So anyway, the way I'm getting into these rate modes is pressing the top left trigger. So rate 1, rate 2, and rate 3 all seem to have the same yaw. So rate 1, pitch and roll. There's our pitch and our roll back and forth. And now the rate 2, a little more aggressive. And our rate 3 is way more aggressive, but what's happening is I'm hitting it all the way in both directions and it's really losing altitude, and I've got to throttle it way up. So just keep that in mind. As far as flips go, right trigger on top. You hear the beeping and then you just press in any direction. Kind of really dropping bad when I do a flip, and I've got to give it full throttle. You can see it drop, basically hit the ground, and I was full throttling up, so a little bit of a lift issue with this one. Doesn't seem like the lift is that great. It's probably going to be better once I cut off these prop guards, so I'll do another video with the prop guards cut off and see how it works a little bit later on. But basically the return to home and headless functions are these buttons here. Whoops. So it completely lost its So it did completely lose its heading already from me testing it. It thinks that home where I am is in that direction for some reason, which is strange because at the park it was returning exactly where I was, so that was interesting. But let's try return to home now by pressing down on this arrow. Okay, the return to home works fantastic. You can see that the headless was off, but look at the return to home. Basically, when I hit this return to home, it's coming right at me. So good to know that the return to home works really well, but when we switch into the headless mode, pressing this top button, well, now headless mode's working. It wasn't working in the high rate, but it seems like it's spot on now. So okay, so gonna go ahead and try a little transmitter shutoff test to simulate transmitter loss while you're flying. I'm just gonna kind of hover over the carpet and shutting off transmitter now. Okay, so almost immediately, maybe about 1 second, and then it will drop out of the sky. So you shouldn't have any flyaway issues if you have transmitter signal loss. Pressing this top button, going out of headless. And there we go. So there's our low voltage landing. And there's our cutoff, low voltage cutoff. Okay, so not bad. Seems like it's a little bit lacking in the lift right off the bat. I'm gonna definitely be cutting off these prop guards and doing another video a little bit later on the differences. Since we've got most of the testing done on this, I'm just gonna quickly go ahead and cut off these prop guards. You should definitely leave these on if you're just starting out training, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut these off real quick and see if we get some better flight time and definitely going to get less wind resistance and a little bit better flight time. So I would recommend cutting these off if you progress and you're not crashing so much. This will be one of the better things you can do. The reason I'm cutting these off is because if you notice here, it looks like the motors are held in by the same caps that have these prop guards molded into them, so it's not easily removable. So anyway, that's kind of unfortunate, but I'm gonna go ahead and just cut those off real quick and do another little test flight. Okay, definitely a little bit more quiet since it's not having all that air passing through, and also it seems a little more locked in and solid. So let's go ahead and try the flips again without the prop guards, see if it flips a little better. Wow, yeah, okay. So huge difference. So it's able to actually maintain its altitude and actually goes up without the prop guards. I'll try and demonstrate that with my controller in view here. Okay, so let's try to get a steady hover. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a flip now. And I'm not going to touch the throttle. So you can see how it actually is starting to go up. So huge difference compared to flipping with the prop guards on. So it'll definitely be a lot more fun to fly with them off, but not until you get better at it. And since we have the prop guards off, let's go ahead and do a lift test. So trying to hover steady and then full throttle. Still definitely a little sluggish on the lifting. That's too bad. So it looks like maybe just the props they chose to put on here don't really have a huge amount of lift. It even looks like you could fit some larger props on here and have a better lifting capability. Anyway, let's go ahead and take this guy back to the bench, do a final pros and cons, and see how it did, get some flight timings on it, and go through all the details on how it did. Hey guys, welcome back. So we're back from the park and also doing some in-house flying of this guy, and just going to go over some pros and cons real quick on how it did. So basically, first of all, it does have cool looks. I like the looks of it. It's a little bit different. Just going to go through a couple pros and cons. Basically, the first off would be it does have kind of a lazy lift unless it's fully charged. At least this model did. It didn't really want to punch too good. As you can see, I did trim off the prop guards, and it flies much better without the prop guards. So I would recommend once you get better and you don't need those anymore, go ahead and trim those off. Would have liked to see a better solution where you could just remove the prop guards and put them back on instead of having to trim them off. But anyway, 3 rates of flight. The pitch and roll were perfect on the 3 rates. It did unfortunately have the same yaw throughout those 3 rates, so I would have liked to see some kind of change in the yaw rate. So that's kind of a con that I only had 1 yaw rate. As you get better, you want to fly faster, and if you can't turn fast enough to accommodate that high speed pitch and roll, it makes it a little bit harder to fly. So I would have liked to see a faster yaw. Also, I was pretty astonished in the park when this thing was actually coming back to me when I hit return to home for a small toy quad like this. Somehow it knew where the transmitter was. I'm not sure how it knows that, but all the other quads up until this point, the toy quads, they just kind of remember their general bearing. So if you launch, say, in this direction facing out, when you do hit that return to home key, it will just come back in that same bearing. If you're over on the side, if you fly out to the side, it will just come back straight back on other quads. But this one, if you flew straight out and then went over to the left, it would angle back and come back straight to you. So very interesting. I really like that feature. I'm not sure how they're doing that, but it's something that I think more of these toy quads they should try to implement. In the headless mode, for some reason, even though it has that accurate return to home feature, in the headless mode, spin a lot with it, it would actually kind of lose its heading a little bit. So that, I'm not sure why it was doing that, but usually these kind of quads do. There's very little that have a very accurate and can maintain their headless mode when you spin quite a bit. It did nice tight flips. I really like the quick and precision flips this thing did. When you do turn the transmitter off, it will just drop after a couple seconds. And as I said before, it flies much better with the prop guards off. You get better lift, a little more flight time, and less. The wind will affect it a lot less, and it will be easier to control without the props. The lighting was good. The lighting on the bottom, it was sufficient. It was bright enough for even the daytime to see when the low battery lights were flashing and stuff. As far as the range goes, approximately 100 feet in the park. I was getting about 100 feet until it started to lose connection and drop in and out of connection. So that's, for this size, I guess that's a little on the low side, maybe a medium type of range. I've seen better on this micro size quad, but that's okay for 100 feet. Because once you get out to 100 feet, it's really hard to see, especially in a black color like this, unless you're against a white cloud or something. As far as the flight times go, I was getting 4 minutes until the blinking, low-level blinking lights came on, and then another 30 seconds until the low voltage forced landing. So a little bit on the low side, but that's kind of average, I guess, average to low. And then it did have that low voltage cutoff. When the battery did drain to a certain point, the motors would shut off to prevent battery damage. So aside from those couple of shortcomings I did mention, I was really impressed with that return to home feature. I don't know how they did it. I hope more quads can do that, where it just comes back right to you no matter what bearing you launch from, wherever it is. It was really good at that, so I'm really impressed with that. The controller is a game style controller, but it's nice and big to accommodate smaller hands as well as adult hands, so no complaints with the controller. Anyway guys, I hope you liked the review, and please like, subscribe, and comment, and go ahead and check out the other videos on my channel. I do a lot of reviews like this, and I think you might like it. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.